everybody. Can you all hear me? Okay, thank you for being here today. Like Amanda said, my name is Ashley Shannon. I first want to start off by thanking the lovely committee one more time for having me. Can we give them a round of applause? You all are awesome for putting something like this together. So Amanda contacted me, obviously, and she said, Ashley, I need you to speak for this event. You have 10 to 12 minutes, and I'm going to try to stay in that time frame. She said, I need you to speak about anything you want to talk about. And I said, you're going to force people to listen to me for 10 to 12 minutes straight. This is going to be wonderful. So I started thinking, of topics, what I want to talk about, and I said, this needs to be something that I personally feel that I dealt with, that I want other people to be able to talk about with me. So I'm going to make this a situation in which we all interact. It's more of an intimate setting. I want it to be fun, exciting. So I'm going to start off by doing what all of our communication teachers asked us to do during our first Gen Ed communication class. We're going to start with an attention getter, all right? My attention getter, here it is, a question. Actually, I'm going to ask you two. The first one, we're just going to do a show of hands. How many of you love your job? And when I say love your job, you can't imagine yourself doing anything else at all. You would stay in this position for the rest of your life. How many people? All right, thank you. You can put your hands down. My next question to you is, how many of you feel motivated, whether it is your job or showing up to class and getting a degree? How many of you feel motivated each and every day to wake up, go to that job, go to that class? You would do it no matter what. You want to be there. You have to be there. How many people? Okay, good number. Put your hands down. Thank you. So while I was doing my research for this talk, I realized that in 2013, Forbes magazine said that about 90% of people in the entire world say their job is actually less about fulfillment and more about frustration. Then in 2017, Return to Now said that it was estimated about 70% of Americans, that's here at home, 70% of Americans actually hate their job. And so I started thinking, we go to school, we get so motivated and everything to go to these jobs, to get this degree. We want to do all of these things. We're so excited. We walk out with that bachelor's or that master's or whatever, and then we show up to our jobs, and one day, we're no longer motivated. We lose that essence. We lose that passion. And I said, what's the formula to success? How can we become successful? How can we not burn out? So I came up with this formula for myself, and I'm going to share that with you all today. The formula says that if we truly want to be successful, we have to first start by identifying our passion in life. The passion is going to lead you down the road to success. If we want to be able to make our passion a success story, then we also must be willing to identify what motivates us to excel within that passion. Meaning you have to find reasoning. Reasoning is our why we do what we do. Why do we wake up every day and we go to that job? Why do we wake up every day and go to these 8 a.m. classes that we shouldn't have signed up for in the first place? Why do we do the things that we do? It's because we want to have a success story in the end. So I said, okay, I can talk about this all day, but if I can never bring it home and talk about myself, then no one's going to understand what I'm talking about. So with the last few minutes I have left to talk to you, I'm going to talk about myself. And that's not because I love talking about myself, it's because this is something I had to deal with. So I'm going to make it a real story for you all. I remember when I was in 5th grade, my teacher, her name was Miss Jaffe. She assigned a project to the class, and it was the what do you want to be when you grow up project, the one everyone hated, because you have to sit there, decide what you're good at and what you wanted to do with the rest of your life. And I was only 10 years old, so I had no idea. And then on the car ride home from a dance practice, I told my mom in the back, hi, Mom. I told her about my assignment, and I said, Mom, I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. You're a teacher, maybe I'll be a teacher. She says, Ashley, you really like talking a lot. How about you become a broadcast journalist? So I went home that night, and I watched Cheryl Burton on ABC 7 News. She had her hair all done. She had her makeup all on. Her clothes were fire. And I said, I'm going to be the next Cheryl Burton. So after that, I decided to go ahead and get my bachelor's in broadcast journalism with a minor in peace and conflict resolution, AKA social justice, just a fancy title for that. So I was really excited about my degree and everything. I even interned with YWCA. I did some marketing work for them. I did TV 10 News. I was a reporter and producer. I even helped co-founded the first all-black entertainment talk show on campus called What's Happening. And I was really excited, but then I realized something. The news is really depressing. You talk about all of these facts, you talk about who died, what fire, the last thing that the president did, don't really want to talk about that. You talk about all these different subjects, and at the end of the day, you never actually solve anything. And so if you're able to be a reporter, you have a great head on your shoulders. I commend you, but I didn't want to just point out the problem, I wanted to be a part of solving it as well. So during the last year of my degree and my bachelor's, I decided, you know what? I fell in love with documentary making at a young age. Maybe that is what I want to do with the rest of my life. Maybe my passion to report and things like that has not changed necessarily, but maybe the reason that I want to be a reporter has changed. Maybe I want to dig deeper into that social justice atmosphere that I was around my whole life. Now my dad in the back, hi Dad. My dad got me into this show called Lock Up at 13 years old. How many of you know what Lock Up is? Okay, for the very few that don't know Lock Up, it's basically a documentary style type of show. People like journalists, producers go into these prisons, they talk to inmates, they ask them, what did you do? How did you end up here? Are you remorseful? How has the system worked for you or against you? And they may talk to a couple of professionals in that time as well. So I used to love Lock Up because they had some really wild inmates on that show. But I always fell in love with these documentaries because they were so interesting to me, why people are in the system, or if they should actually be in there at all. Did they really do the crime that they're being accused of? So I said to myself, okay, if I truly want to talk about the system and systematic oppression and break this down for people throughout documentaries, what can I do to get there? I said, okay, in order to point out the flaws within the system, I first need to be able to understand the system. I went ahead and got my master's in studies of law at UIUC Law School this past year, did that program in a year. While I was there, I was able to study the collateral consequences of probation. I was able to work with Illinois Innocence Project, read a bunch of authors, take a bunch of classes revolving around criminal law, and I came to this conclusion while I was there. If you know of Michelle Alexander, she has this theory called the new Jim Crow. Has anybody heard of it? Okay, we're getting really good at this hand thing. Thank you all. The new Jim Crow, if you don't know it, it basically says that, the criminal justice system has always been what it is today. That Jim Crow, back then when there were rules set to systematically keep Black people or entirely people of color oppressed, those rules never changed back in the day. They simply rearranged and changed itself into a new name called the criminal justice system. And now the system is kept to keep us locked into a system for the rest of our life. So once you get into the criminal justice system, once your name is in that system, you're set up to never be able to get out of it. That was her theory. Now, of course, there are people like Pfaff that came along and disagreed with her and said, mass incarceration is not necessarily a problem. It's just a product of a system that we didn't build too well. Then there were people like Alex Goffman that came around and she said, there are people out here that are forever on the run for the system, and she studied them and she implanted herself in a community. Basically, all these authors impacted my reasoning. Meaning I always wanted to study criminal law, I always wanted to do documentaries, but my reasoning behind why I wanted to do those things changed often. Because every now and then we kind of have to sit back, right? And we have to ask ourselves again, why am I here? Why am I doing what I do? Sometimes it's okay to have a different reason than you did the day before, is my point. After I went on to get my master's and study all these things, a dean came to me and she said, you're pretty good at law. You should go back to law school. I said, I don't know how I feel about that. The law is a little iffy. I don't know if I want to ethics is the thing for me. I don't know how I feel about that. I realized criminal law was sort of my thing. I wanted to study criminal law. I wanted to study government and how the law plays a role in government as well. So I took the LSAT, of course, and right before I did that, I was able to work with Illinois Innocence Project. While I was working there, a man, the director, John Hanlon, told me that sometimes people are put into the system simply because they are guilty before proven innocent. Now that's something we're not used to hearing, right? Because we always hear you're innocent before being proved guilty. He says that sometimes your guilt is within the color of your skin. Sometimes the reason that you are put into the system has less to do with actual facts and that beyond a reasonable doubt that we're all told you're supposed to have. Sometimes it has a lot to do with other people's motivations. And so I sat back and I said, what is he talking about? Then I watched this movie. How many of you have watched Central Park 5, Now They See Us? Thank you. If you haven't watched it, I strongly encourage you to do so, and I suggest that you sit down and do it all in one night, because that's when it's most impactful. In that movie, I'm going to sum it up very fast for you because I have to close out soon. 5 young boys were accused of the rape of a woman. It was a white woman. There were investigators, police officers, lawyers that in the back of their head knew these guys were innocent, and yet still were persistent in proving that they were guilty. And it wasn't necessarily that they were guilty of the crime. It was that they were guilty of being black in America. I know that sentence can sound a little radical, but that's what we have to deal with nowadays. Those young boys, all of the decisions that people made up until their case came to be, played a role in their conviction. And yes, they were told they were guilty and they served time if you don't know the movie. When I say that, it's because a lawyer at one point, whoever came against them, saw something was not right with this case, yet she kept going, yet she kept saying, I'm going to prove that these guys are guilty. Why was she so persistent in wanting to prove these boys guilty? It's because some reasoning behind why she got into that passion, whatever reasoning that may be, is what motivated her to call them guilty. Then you have the investigators who said, to this day, the blonde lady in the movie, she still says, to this day, she thinks that these guys are guilty. And that makes you ask yourself, what was her reasoning between wanting to prove their guilt so bad if she could see that they were innocent the entire time? What was her reasoning behind wanting to be an investigator? Maybe it had less to do with actually protecting people, more to do with making herself look good if she was able to solve the case. Then you have these police officers that were right under the investigator that said, we're going to do whatever it takes to lock up somebody for this crime, whether it's not letting these boys eat while they're in interrogation, whether it be not letting them drink water, whether it be not telling their parents that we're in a room slapping them around so we can get them to take a plea deal. There were people in place that didn't realize that whatever their why was, of why they were doing their job, why are they fulfilling their passion, they never questioned that why. They never actually thought that that why would affect more than just themselves. Sometimes the decisions that you're going to make in your life, why you're doing what you do, why you get up for that job, why you are getting that degree, you don't realize, but your why will affect more than just yourself. It not only helps you to carry out your passion, but to do it well. So I encourage you all that when you go home tonight, you sit down and you ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it something I truly want to do? Am I motivated to do it? Why am I motivated to do it as well? And in that moment, realize who you're not only affecting, it may not only be yourself, it may be everyone else in the room as well. I thank you for your time, and I thank Involvement to Industry. Have a good night.